Hey students, it's Mrs. Slevin. We've been studying fiction and plot structure, and today we're going to introduce the concept of point of view to you. So the point of view is the perspective from which the story is being told. Point of view really matters. Look at these guys. This guy is on a deserted island, stranded here for who knows how long, and he is so excited to see this boat in the distance. He's screaming, "Boat!" He might think he's going to be rescued, that this person's going to save him. But if we look at it from another point of view, this guy in the boat is so excited to see land. We might infer that he's been in this boat for quite some time. So for each of them, their different perspective matters to what this story might be about, what they're thinking, and what they're feeling. It just kind of makes me feel bad for both of them. So we have different kinds of point of view. We have first person point of view, second person point of view, third person limited, and third person omniscient. The point of view that we're hearing the story from is going to affect the pronouns that are used. In first person, then we're going to hear words like I and we because the person in the story is telling the story. In second person, we're going to hear words like you because the narrator is talking to you. We don't see second person as often as we see first or third person limited and third person omniscient. In third person, there's a narrator telling the story, and you're going to hear pronouns like he, she, it, they did this, they went there. We're going to look at each of these four in a little bit more detail. First person, the story is told from a character in the story itself, and they're going to say, I did this, I did that. So here's an example. Last night, my mother's favorite vase broke. We walked into the kitchen, and there it was on the floor. My brother and I looked at each other in surprise, and my mother looked at us accusingly. Okay, tell me, how did you do this? Were you playing ball in the house again? I just stood there, dumbstruck, wondering what happened to the vase. Then the cat flew out from under the table and dashed out of the room. His little jingle toy was lying amidst the broken glass. So this story is being told from one of the brothers in the story. And he's using pronouns like I because he's in the story and these things are happening to him. If we look at this picture up here, it's like we're seeing through the narrator's eyes. We're looking at this picture. We can see right through the narrator's eyes and what's going on around them. Second person we don't see as often, and the example is a little bit different than the examples for first and third person. Second person is when you hear the word you, and the author is actually talking to you as the reader. This example is from a picture book, Dr. Seuss's Oh, the Places You'll Go. You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own, and you know what you know. We also see second person in directions or recipes that are directed at the reader. So in this case, the narrator tells the reader what they see. So we're looking at this picture, and the narrator's telling us, you see the sun, you see the mountains. Third person limited is when a narrator is telling the story, but we're limited to hearing the story from one character's perspective. So we're back to the cat story. And think about whose point of view are we hearing this from? Last night, Mrs. Williams' favorite vase broke. The family gathered in the kitchen for dinner, and there it was on the floor. Mrs. Williams thought of all the times that she had asked her sons to be careful in the house. Okay, tell me, how did you do this? Were you playing ball in the house again? She asked them accusingly. At first she was angered by their blank stares. Then she felt silly when the cat dashed out from under the kitchen table. His little jingle toy was lying amidst the broken glass. So we're hearing this from the mom's perspective. We're only hearing the mom's thoughts and feelings. And she's using words like her sons. How did you? She's talking to them. She asked them accusingly. So if we're looking at that picture up here, it's like we're following one single character at a time. Kind of like a camera is just focused in on that one character. And we're hearing what they see in this painting. That she sees the mountains and she sees the sun. The other kind of third person is third person omniscient. And this root word, omni, means all. So third person omniscient is all knowing. It's when we're hearing the story from the narrator, but we're getting the thoughts and feelings of more than one character. So think about the characters that you're hearing their perspective when you read this version. Last night, Mrs. Williams' favorite vase broke. The family gathered in the kitchen, and there it was on the floor. Mrs. Williams thought of all the times that she had asked her sons to be careful in the house. Okay, tell me, how did you do this? Were you playing ball in the house again? She asked them accusingly. Thomas and Paul were as surprised to see the broken vase as their mother was. They stared back at her blankly. At first, their silence angered Mrs. Williams. Then, suddenly, they all understood what had happened when the cat flew out from under the table and dashed out of the room. His little jingle toy was lying amidst the broken glass. So a narrator is telling the story, but we're hearing what Mrs. Williams is thinking and feeling. We're also hearing what her sons, Thomas and Paul, are thinking and feeling. They were surprised. Mrs. Williams thought. We're hearing it from more than one character's perspective. So here it's like we're seeing this person's thoughts about this painting and this person's thoughts about this painting. It's all knowing. So we're going to read this, and then I'm going to have a few questions for you. This is your time to practice. Think about what point of view this piece is written in. Karen and her brother walked silently along the beach and watched as the waves dashed repetitively upon the shore. Karen thought of all the days and nights they had spent aboard the ship, and how she had almost lost Paul. She had been so sick when they arrived in America, the doctors had kept Paul in seclusion for almost a month. Until they knew he was no longer contagious, they wouldn't even allow Karen to see Paul during those first few weeks. Paul intently watched his sister's face, knowing from her expression exactly what she was thinking. He too had been frightened by his experience and could not stop wondering and worrying about their parents. The ship should arrive any day now, Paul comforted Karen. Won't it be wonderful when Mother and Father step off the ship and we're finally together again? Karen smiled as she grasped her brother's outstretched hand. Their lives had changed forever since they left their home a year ago. Karen didn't want Paul's worries to be made worse because he was concerned about her too. Yes, it will be wonderful, just like you say, she told him. As Karen glanced back out over the water, Paul knew that neither his sister nor his sister's smiles would be genuine. So now that you've practiced a little bit with point of view, this is just kind of a cheat sheet at the end that gives you point of view explained. First person, I and we, told from an individual perspective. I looked at the picture, but I don't know the artist's intent. We're seeing that through the narrator's eyes. Second person is you, has a choose your own adventure effect. So you look at the picture, but don't know the artist's intent. There's third person limited, using she, he, stories told from a person's perspective, but the narrator only has access to that one, knowing how that one person thinks or feels. So she looks at the picture, but she doesn't know the artist's intent. And then there's third person omniscient. The only difference between third and first is in omniscient, the all-seeing narrator knows the character's thoughts and feelings of multiple characters. So she can't tell the artist's intent, but he thinks she's judging his simplicity. Come back here if you need a little cheat sheet on point of view. Think about the story or the book that you are reading in English right now. What point of view is your story being told from?